Hello and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Janine and I am currently 23 weeks and 3 days pregnant with our IVF twins, and this video is going to be about how we came to the decision to transfer 2 embryos. It can be seen as a controversial decision. There's a lot of different viewpoints, so this is just, you know, for us, what we took into consideration when we made our decision. When I first started seeing a reproductive endocrinologist, or an RE, a fertility specialist, and I knew we were going to be heading down the path of IVF, I immediately joined some subreddits on Reddit, I joined some Facebook groups, and I found a community within Instagram, and I just wanted to make sure I had as much support as possible. And one of the most common questions you'll get on any of those platforms is, how many embryos are you going to transfer? How did you decide? Why? So I would read those posts and just really absorb what everybody's perspective was and how and why they came to their decision. So before I get into our decision, I wanted to share the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, or ASRM's, guidelines. For them, if you have done genetic testing, also known as PGS, PGTA, if you've done genetic testing on your embryos, their recommendation is to only ever transfer 1 embryo. If you have not done genetic testing, if you are under 37, they still recommend 1. If you're between 38 and 40, up to 2, and 41 to 42, up to 3. That's just the guideline. Every center and clinic is different. So if it is really important for you to have the opportunity to be able to transfer 2 embryos, that's one of the first things you need to ask a clinic or a center before you move forward with them, because there are a lot of centers who will not transfer 2. It doesn't matter the situation. And if your end goal is to have a baby, I'm kind of generalizing here, but transferring 1 embryo is going to give you the best odds to get a baby. I'll go ahead and link their guidelines down in the description. That way, if you want to read more into it, you can go ahead and do that. Obviously, I was just giving the Cliff Notes version. My RE and my center does allow patients to transfer up to 2 embryos. And one of the biggest reasons why is because he is an infertility warrior himself. Him and his wife experienced infertility, and they have 2 sets of twins, a set of identical twins from, a single embryo that's split, who are, I think they're 13, and then 2 boys who they're either 6 or 7 from 2 embryos. He allows his patients to transfer up to 2 embryos as long as you don't meet one of 3 criteria. The first being if you have history of early delivery, an incompetent cervix, or any medical conditions that would put you in a high-risk category, like diabetes. He will not allow you to transfer 2 embryos. If you've had twin complications in the past, he won't allow you to transfer 2 embryos. Or if you have abnormal uterus, so maybe it's small or the shape or there's something with your uterus, he also will not allow you to transfer 2. But if you don't have any of those 3 things, he will allow patients to choose 1 or 2. And that's mostly because he knows that when you go through infertility, you just never know. Like, you have that fear of, am I ever gonna get pregnant again? I wanna say we got our transfer consent forms right after my baseline scan. And when it came time for us to make the decision, we definitely approached it in a nerdy way. That's really the only way I can say it. We talked every scenario through. We looked at statistics, it became kind of mathematical, because that's how we needed to wrap our minds around what decision we were going to make. And so the 3 things that we considered was 1, how many embryos we had, 2, the financial impact, and 3, our future plans. First thing we thought about was how many embryos we have. We only sent 8 for PGS testing, so genetic testing. And we knew we had 5 normal embryos, 2 abnormals, and 1 mosaic. And our center does not transfer abnormals or mosaic embryos, so we had already decided what to do with those when we signed our transfer consent forms. So we knew we had 5 normal embryos that were, you know, graded well to work with for this first transfer. If we had only had 1 or 2 embryos, we would have only transferred 1. I'm actually gonna add a 1.5. I'm gonna do a piggyback off the first PGS results, because our results and having highly graded embryos and having 5 normals helped with the statistics side of it, because I'm just going to give a general number. They say anywhere between 16 and 28% of both embryos sticking, and so we felt like we were probably on the higher end because we did have PGS tested embryos and they were high quality, but that's still low. That's, you know, I had a hard time kind of wrapping my mind around that at first, like, oh, but you know, am I preparing myself for only 1 to stick or none, you know? And that's something you really have to work through yourself. Like, nobody can help you with that. Another statistic we took into consideration was, what are the chances of an embryo splitting? That's like a 1% chance, but we had to consider, is that 1% chance worth having triplets? And if you were to have 1 in 240 chance twice of having quadruplets. So that was definitely another statistic we took into consideration. Then the big one, of course, is the financial impact. Were we in a place to have, you know, 2 newborns? And, you know, this happens. People have twins all the time naturally. So, you know, and everyone says there's never a good time to have a baby, you just do it. And, you know, there's all of that. But for us, because of how much money we put into IVF, we wanted to make sure that we were set up and prepared to be able to handle it. You know, there's a lot of things like, you know, daycare. Am I going to go back to work? If I do, what does that look like for him? What, you know, there's all these things that are indirectly impacted, and you have to be able to financially support it. Or that was important for us, at least, like knowing that we could do all the things we wanted to do and still be able to provide was really important in our decision making. And the last thing we took into consideration was our future plans. I've always said that I wanted as many kids as I could afford, because while I only have 1 biological brother and sister, most of my life I grew up with 6 kids. So the house was loud. There was always someone to play with. It was so fun. So I always wanted as many as I could afford, and like 4 was that magical number. But I also, you know, didn't know I was going to be an infertile, and how much money was going to go into, you know, building our family and, you know, starting later in life than I wanted. And not that I feel, you know, old or anything at all. It's just those were pieces of the puzzle for us to consider. So knowing that this could be my only pregnancy, that we took that into consideration with how many embryos we had with the statistics. That's how we came to the decision to transfer 2. Didn't tell anybody. There was a very small amount of people who knew, and it was mostly people within my IVF community, within my center itself, and a couple of my really close friends who have done IVF themselves. So we kept it very hush-hush, because like when you've just encountered hurdle over hurdle to start your family, you're kind of always waiting for the other shoe to drop. It was a fear for me. And there you have it. That's ultimately how we came to the decision to transfer 2 embryos. I'm, you know, really glad that we did come to that conclusion, and that we have, you know, a little boy and little girl joining us this fall. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'm pretty open book about my journey so far. And if you liked this video, go ahead and like and subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you're notified when I post my next video. Thank you for watching.